UFC Fight Night Edmonton, Moreno versus Albazi takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this one out. However, my motivation for it has not been huge. It's a decent card, though. So let's get started with the early prelim opener of Jack Shore versus Youssef Zalal. Actually, a really good opener of the early prelims. I'm going to have to go with Youssef Zalal, and it pains me. It pains me to have to go against Jack Shore because I'm a big fan of Jack Shore and I wish him nothing but the best. But the dude is not a featherweight. He's not a featherweight. Youssef Zalal's been working on his grappling and he's had some really good performances and he's got momentum. Momentum is huge in the unranked section of the UFC. You know, he's on a few fight win streak. He won a fight in August of last year, came into the UFC, beat Billy Quarantillo. I picked him to do so as an underdog because I saw the improvements he was making on the regional scene. And he's still very young in his career, Youssef Zalal. The guy's 28 years old. I mean, he lost to Ilia Topuria ages ago and people were like, he'll never be anything. And listen, he had some other iffy performances as well. There was a Sung Woo Choi fight where neither of them really did anything for the distance. But he lost to Ilia Topuria, took him to a decision, might I add. It was Ilia Topuria taking the fight on short notice because he was supposed to originally be fighting Sung Woo Choi. However, he still took Ilia Topuria to a decision. Topuria was on the ground, putting him in some dash chokes and such, and he was escaping the positions. Sean Woodson took him to a split, but now he's at bantamweight. I think his physicality is going to hold up a bit better. His confidence in the exchanges is going to be a bit better. Maybe Jack Shore is just going to have two... Wait, this is a featherweight fight. Don't know why I'm saying bantamweight because Jack Shore's moved up and I just screamed that he's not a bantamweight. He's not a bantamweight, Jack Shore. Let me restate that. Youssef Zalal is going to be good enough to get this one done. I don't like this fight for Jack Shore. Maybe his grappling is going to be enough, but again, he's not a bantamweight. He just isn't a bantamweight. That's just how it is. Like, you're not a huge dude. The answer wasn't, and I know that he obviously knows more than I do about his career, but I don't think the answer was to just move up a weight class. I think you have to have a bit of frame advantage over your opponents, Jack Shore, at bantamweight, so you can use your grappling against them. And then you got a guy in Youssef Zalal here who's very good, very technical, trains very well, is making improvements night and day between fights that we've seen him. I mean, this second run in the UFC has been way better. You can say, okay, he fought, you know, lesser competition this time round, but still, he's looking a lot better on the feet. He's looking better in his grappling as well. I'm going to go against Jack Shore to start the card. Very, very good prospect at one point. Looked amazing in his initial run in the UFC. Coming off of a broken leg, I'm pretty sure, after the fight with Joanderson Brito, where he just chewed up the leg of Jack Shore. And again, that was another physicality problem where he just isn't imposing enough at featherweight to do what he needs to do. So I'm going to go with Youssef Zalal getting this one done. We move on. Jamie Lyn-Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. I mean, I'll go Jamie Lyn-Horth. She went to a split with Veronica Hardy, who's a very technical women's fighter, for a women's fighter, very technical. I rate that over anything Ivana Petrovic has done in her career. That's really what it comes down to in that matchup, to be honest with you. Like, there's just that bit of evidence. Like, I don't think it was a split decision. I do think Veronica Hardy won the fight. It was a competitive fight, though. And that's impressive because I know Veronica Hardy is well-trained. I have no idea if Ivana Petrovic is in any way good. We still have no evidence of that whatsoever. Very young into her career. Beat Na Liang. But then, like, what does that even mean at this point? Lost to Luana Carolina. Like, it's just... Yeah, I'm just going to move on from that one, innit? We'll go Jamie Lyn-Horth, see what happens. We move on. Chad Anhliger versus Cody Gibson. I'm going to go with Cody Gibson because I think this will be a very high-paced fight, and I think both of them can keep that pace. I was very frustrated by Cody Gibson's performance against Miles Johns. I felt like he could have done a bit better. Maybe there was an injury there. Who knows? You never know what people are going into fights with. He submitted Brian Kelleher in the first round with an arm triangle. I kind of saw that one coming as well. Brian Kelleher has had a ton of injuries throughout his career. I think he could have done a bit more against Miles Johns. I think there was a chance of him actually getting it done against Brad Katona. These aren't bad bantamweights. They're like top 20 to 30 ranked bantamweights, these guys, outside the rankings. And Chad Anheliga, although he has had some decent performances where he's looked better than maybe he should against certain opponents, like Muin Gafarov, who he actually got a win over on the Contender Series, that's his big one. Other than that, I'm seeing a loss to Hilal Lateng. I'm seeing a loss to Jose Johnson, who is a big dude for the division. But then you beat Charalampas Grigoriou. What's that mean? What does that mean, really? I'm going to go with Cody Gibson. A little bit too big and imposing for Chad Anheliga. And I reckon that'll lead him to get the victory. Just by, I think they're both going to try and put a pace on each other. They both can keep a similar level of pace. But Cody Gibson's a lot bigger than him. And Cody Gibson's got 7 inches of reach on him as well. So I'm going to go with Cody Gibson. Don't see a finish here. I see a decision either way. And I'm going to go with the much more physically imposing guy to be able to push a pace a little bit more effectively. We move on. Plus, Chad Anheliga, something that we're going to have as a repeating thing throughout this prediction video, is a Canadian male. Now, no offense to the Canadians watching, which there may be some, you guys don't have a great track record in combat sports. Yeah, we move on. Sirhi City versus Garrett Armfield. Now, this one makes me want to go against Sirhi City again. Because I did just say that Canadians aren't the best. However, Garrett Armfield, you know, Sirhi City's the prospect here. And he had a great scrap in his last fight. And it wasn't the best look for him to go to a crazy, crazy scrap with the great Ramon Taveras. You know, he beat him on the Contender Series. They said, a little bit early of a stoppage. You kind of got to let it go on. They do the rematch in the UFC. It's one of those weird ones when it was a weird situation. Ends up going to a split decision. Either guy could have won. Sirhi City had the visible damage on his body, but I actually think he actually did more in terms of effective landing on Ramon Taveras. Whatever, maybe they do some kind of trilogy somewhere down the line, the great trilogy between these two great names. But he's taken a lot of time off. He's had 10.5 months off after that fight with Ramon Taveras. And he's the prospect here. 28 years old, on the come up, rangy, dangerous, 5'11" for the division. Garrett Armfield also got quite a decent reach for his size, but you know, I'm looking at a 5'11" guy here in this matchup at bantamweight, and I don't think Garrett Armfield's going to be offensively grappling against him. I think they're going to get scrappy in this fight, and I'm noticing that Sirhi City's got a reach advantage over him as well. I'm going to go with Sirhi City getting this one done. Straight shots down the pipe. Yeah, I wasn't too impressed by Garrett Armfield's last performance against Brady Highstand. He got finished by Brady Highstand. That's him. No. He had a decent win over... He had a win over Brad Katona. That's a decent performance, but then got sort of destroyed by Brady Highstand in the grappling, right? That was that fight. Got choked out towards the end of it. Yeah, I'm going to side with Sirhi City here, the longer, rangier opponent, if they are going to duke it out on the feet and get scrappy. We move on. Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Nothing like two fat heavies to kick off a prelim card. I'm going to go Romanov. I believe in Romanov. I've always somewhat believed in Romanov. Now, they gave him Volkov, and that's tough. You know, he ends up losing. And they give him Jailton Almeida. And Jailton Almeida, like, literally Lois Griffin's brother in Family Guy. This guy's the fat guy strangler. You put a guy with a certain BMI in front of him, they're finished. You know what I mean? They're toast. I'm going to go with Romanov. I'm going to go Romanov here over Rodrigo Nascimento. I just haven't seen any talent from Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira at any point in his career. Against Derrick Lewis, he got beaten. He got finished in the third. It was a decent performance before that. You know, some moments back and forth. He was kind of holding Lewis up against a cage in moments and things like that. And Lewis can have iffy ones. And Derrick Lewis is going to be on this card as well. He actually did take some decent shots off Derrick Lewis in that fight, though. Before that, he beat Dontel Mays, the great Dontel Mays, the great Ilir Latifi by split decision. Arguably could have gone to Ilir Latifi, by the way. Tanner Bosa there as well. And I just think Romanov is way more talented in an area of the game. Like, I think his grappling is somewhat decent offensively. And, you know, maybe, you know, Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira can, like, work his way into the fight as it goes on. And maybe after the first round, it would be good to put some odds on Rodrigo Nascimento. But in terms of who's going to get an early finish here, if there is going to be one, I reckon Romanov is way more likely to get that. You know, he fought Marcin Tybura at altitude, and although people make fun of Tybura, I know he's trash, but he's still a top-level heavyweight, and it was a close fight between them. You know, he dominated the first round against him, and then just couldn't really get grappling going later on because he was exhausted at altitude. Whose idea was it to put Romanov at altitude? I have no idea. But then they gave him Volkov. After he lost to Tybura, here's Alexander Volkov, and he just failed a single leg and got smoked, basically, after he just held onto a single leg for dear life. I do think his grappling's all right, though. Against another fat dum-dum, I think his grappling will be the difference. So I am going to actually go with Alexander Romanov here to get it done over Rodrigo Nascimento, maybe by TKO early or maybe a finish in the first round might be some good odds here. We move on. Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. You know what? I was going to go with Victor Henry, but I've been watching back some fights, and man, Victor Henry's somewhat unimpressive from what I remember him as. I'll be honest with you. I saw him as this, oh my God, Victor Henry. He hasn't made his way into the UFC yet. And I know, what's his name? Josh Barnett was really hyping him up while he was on the regional scene, like, give this guy his chance. He's really good. I think he trains with Josh Barnett. And there was a moment where I'm like, damn, that was a good performance against Tony Barcelos. Really good performance against Tony Barcelos in the UFC, you know? There's other stuff, though, man. The Asuncao fight was just like, you know when someone's doing a whole bunch, but nothing's really happening? That's how I kind of see a lot of Victor Henry's performances. Like, yeah, he's switching stances on the outside and putting volume out there. Can we do better than split decision winning over Tony Gravely, please? You know? He's got output. He's got volume. But sometimes you don't have that sting. You don't have that vavavoom. We're taking Rani Yahya to the third round here. Dust him up in one. I think Charles Jourdain at bantamweight, which is where he's moving for this, which is risky for him, but he is quite a small featherweight. He's very slender for his size. He ain't got much frame to him. But I feel like Charles Jourdain finishes Rani Yahya in round one, just on physicality alone, just going out there and slugging it out with him. So if Charles Jourdain can make bantamweight effectively, I think he destroys him. I think he destroys Victor Henry I think he destroys Rani Yahya. But I think he's going to beat Victor Henry by doing more damage. And I can see a TKO here. I can see a TKO for Charles Jourdain. He's going to have a physicality advantage over him. He's got reach, I would imagine, as well. Unless Victor Henry's got weirdly long arms for his size. Because Jourdain doesn't even have much reach over anyone normally, right? 69-inch reach. That's a woman's reach. So I'm going to go against Victor Henry. There was a part of me that thought to myself, this one's not going to be good for Charles Jourdain. But I think he's the type of fighter where he's so dynamic and dangerous on the feet and goes for damage. If you give him physicality over an opponent and he can make this bantamweight cut effectively, I think it's going to be a real advantage for him. So I don't think he'll go all the way at bantamweight, but I think he can beat a Victor Henry. I think he can do better than a Tony Gravely did, if you know what I'm saying. So, because when you really look through Charles Jourdain's career, I mean, Gene Silver, that to me at the time, it was like, oh, Gene Silver's good, but man, that might spell the end for Jourdain. And then you're like, oh my God, what did Gene Silver just do to Dober? This guy's legit. Fighting Nerds hyper rises, and now we're like, okay, maybe a loss to Gene Silver ain't that bad. The guy missed weight. Sean Woodson. Split decision. Tall, lanky, annoying, disgusting to look at fighter. Hideous. Kill him before he lays eggs. I'm joking. Don't do that. I'm not doing a call to action there, but like, you know, shoo. Yo, Halloween, it's festive. Like, maybe it's part of the seasonal thing, but the guy looks like a stretched, tortured Mike Wazowski. You know what I'm saying? Dangerous to fight in that division. Very tall, very annoying to deal with. What's Jourdain supposed to do, guys? Come on. Ricardo Ramos, he beats. Kron Gracie, he beats. Destroys for 3 rounds. Subs Ricardo Ramos in a round. You know, he pants to Lando Venata in a round and subbed him too, and did what he did against Yule with the Sparta kick at the end. Nathaniel Wood fight was very close. I just watched that one back. Very, very close fight. Wood was rocking him in moments, but you know how Wood likes to make things very close when he doesn't have to. Shane Burgos fight. Arguably should have won it. I miss Burgos. Come back to us, Burgos. I'm sure we can work something out, UFC. He always had fun fights. Made a bunch of fight night cards, Shane Burgos, with how fun his fights were. And he started to get a bit dull towards the end. But hey, Jourdain made him dull because Jourdain was doing real good work on the feet. Knees in the clinch, all sorts. I think knees in the clinch are going to be a big factor here as well against Victor Henry. See him tying up a lot. Henry trying to get his head in, get his forehead in Jourdain's face. Put the pressure on him, and then Jourdain just tying up in the clinch and kneeing him to the body. I'm going to go with Jourdain with TKO. I'm going to say it comes from the clinch. We move on. Up the card. Ariane Lipski versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm going to go with Jasmine Jasudavicius. I keep picking against Ariane Lipski because I'm just like, you're too hot to be good. You know what I mean? Built like an ironing board, but cute. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's like, I doubt you because of this. You know, Karine Silva's not bad, though. She did beat Casey O'Neill. Split decision over Melissa Gatto. Beat JJ Aldridge. I just think Jasmine Jasudavicius has been looking pretty decent recently. The Tracy Cortez fight, she did get outstruck quite obviously at a discrepancy. Natalia Silva, I think, is probably going to go on to become some kind of champ if she has got the takedown defense to back it up. So I don't blame her for that one. A lack of finishing potential here and there. Destroyed Priscilla Cachoeira. That's like the 5th time it's happened in Cachoeira's career. Fatima Klein, not the best, but she won that. We get a momentum going. It's a short notice step up. Lipski's... It's a tricky one with Lipski because sometimes she just pulls it off. You know? But I'm going to go Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm going to go Jasmine Jasudavicius here. This is her moment. Canadian women typically have a decent win ratio on their own cards. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jasmine. A little bit bigger as well. A little bit rangier. That goes a long way in these lower divisions. I'll go Jasudavicius, getting this one done. We move on. Amir Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Wow. Now, this is tricky, yeah, because in any other world, like 2 years ago, I'd be like, dude, Munoz is easily going to win. I think Munoz is done. And the fact that Rob Font just made Kyler Phillips look like he's never trained a day in his life makes me concerned for the fact that Pedro Munoz and his fight with Kyler Phillips was one of the key reasons as to why I picked Phillips to beat Font. Because he looked completely outmatched by Phillips and made Phillips look like he was going to go on to become some kind of monster in a division. I don't like that in hindsight. I don't like that. And in the Marlon Vera fight, you know, he made it somewhat competitive because Vera's there to hit. But Zahabi moves well, and he's trained by Faras, and they know how to move around the outside and pick their exchanges and set a strategy. And I just think that Pedro Munoz, his little style of dipping in like that and swinging hooks and going for the low kick, it's like a simple thing for for Faras Zahabi to like code in to Amir Zahabi to win this fight with. You know? It's not simple. Pedro Munoz is good. He's a top-level fighter. I get it. But you have seen a degrading level of skill in his game. You know? And I know Amir Zahabi's also quite old. Not as old as Pedro Munoz. 38 years old at bantamweight. No bueno. Okay? 36 for Amir Zahabi. But he got his career started quite late. You know? Very late. He actually had a lot of fights early. Like, he was fighting in 2012. But the guy just was incredibly inactive, I guess. I mean, damn. Time really does shoot by. But, yeah, he was having, like, a fight a year. 2 fights a year. He lost twice early on in the UFC. Got spinning elbowed by Ricardo Ramos. Vince Morales then beat him in a pretty competitive fight. 4-fight win streak now, though. Beat Javid Basharat. I think that's a solid win. I like that win. I like that win. That's a good win. Tercios did nothing against him and just let him win. It's kind of a whatever type of fight. I'm going to go with Amir Zahabi. I don't think he puts away Pedro Munoz, but I think he can figure out that style of Munoz where he just comes in all twitchy with his hands and looking to throw these in-tight hooks. Because sometimes Munoz just lets fights get away from him now. So I'll go Zahabi. Getting this one done. Close decision, 29-28. Based on the first 2 or the last 2 rounds. I mean, it's either or, innit? Well, it could be the first or the last. But yeah, I think first 2 or last 2. There'll be some kind of either he keeps it early and then takes off the third. Or he'll leave off early and then take over in the second and third. We'll see. Thank you for the... Well, let's fucking move on. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. Whoa, what a matchup. There's so many fights. I'm going to go with Mike Malott over Trevin Giles. He was dominating Neil Magny in the grappling. And listen, as much as everyone's like, he lost to Neil Magny, he's awful. He is. Okay, he really is. And Trevin Giles did have a few moments against Prates. So I feel like if Malott does get stuck on the feet here, he likely will lose to Trevin Giles. But I think he'll be able to grapple with him. The adjustments he can make after that. I mean, it kind of got humbled. Like, wow, you lost to Magny. You've really got to work on a lot. He's had some time out. He was supposed to fight Urbina in the middle of the year. Why was this fight cancelled? Do we know? Urbina got injured. So Malott's been staying ready, looking for a fight all the way through the year. He's back now on the Canada card. He didn't really beat anyone that good before. But I liked how easily he was out grappling Neil Magny, and he was chewing up the leg of Neil Magny as well. Trevin Giles' leg is there to be chewed up. And Malott will go for calf kicks. He can also be out grappled Trevin Giles. And Magny, although, you know, people say, any grappler beats him, or anyone who can throw leg kicks beats him. He beats Philip Rowe. You know, he beats D-Rod and out grapples him. He doesn't let Jeff Neal do anything really to him in their fight. And he has got some level of grappling understanding. It's just if you're athletic enough, you just beat him. And he was doing all right against Morales until he got hit with that weird goofy elbow on the break from the clinch. Like he was holding him against the cage and, you know, out physicalitying him in that fight in moments. So I'm going to go with Mike Malott here. I think he'll be able to out grapple Trevin Giles and I'll take him by submission. We move on. Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Quite simple. I think both are mid. I think to beat Marc-Andre Barriault, though, you've got to have some finishing potential. If you look back throughout Marc-Andre Barriault's career, you'll see Joe Pyfer finished him in the first round. He went to a split decision with Chris Curtis. That was a very close fight. Could have gone either way. Anthony Hernandez ended up out grappling him, and they really put cardio to cardio in that fight, but his grappling skills just weren't quite up to date. Chidi Njokuani put him away in the first round, and other than that, it's going to be a close decision against this recent version of Marc-Andre Barriault. He puts a good pace on. And I don't see Stoltzfus with any level of finishing ability. And I don't see him keeping that pace for 3 rounds with Marc-Andre Barriault. He's not going to get a finish early. He gets finished a lot of the time. So I don't think he's even going to be looking for a finish early either. Yeah, I'm going to go against Dustin Stoltzfus. Shock twist, I know. And go with Marc-Andre Barriault. I just see this making it into the decision area. And if it does, that means Marc-Andre is going to have enough of a chance to do what he does good. Stoltzfus is pretty slow. Untalented for MMA. Not really athletic in any way. Some people just don't got it. Marc-Andre at least is output heavy and keeps things going and puts stuff out there and goes for it. So I think if it does go to a decision, it will likely go towards Andre just for activity. We move on. Caio Machado versus Brendson Ribeiro. Ooh, it's an interesting one because Machado actually looked pretty good against Mick Parkin. Now, I know. But I don't pick heavyweights. I don't care. They're all shit. They're disgusting fat sacks of... Ugh. Self-hatred is really coming out of me now, guys. I'm venting it towards them, though, rather than my mirror before bed. Just disgusting, fat, hideous slobs. The lot of them, I tell you. Nothing to it but a YouTube channel. Anyway, I don't pick heavyweights to win in any division but heavyweight. You're fat. You're not good at fighting. That's why you were a heavyweight. Sorry. Not sorry. Going with Brendson Ribeiro. Lost to Gadzielov in a close fight. Some yucky moments of grappling where Gadzielov just kind of laid on him the entire fight in moments and nothing really was getting done. Zhang put him out in the first. That was kind of a who's going to win the first round type of fight. And it ended up not being him. But I think light heavyweights on the regionals are just way better. They're actual athletes. And most heavyweights aren't. They're just fat and big. So I'm going to go with Brendson Ribeiro getting a TKO win over Machado. We move on. Derrick Lewis versus Jhonata Diniz. Do we finally pick against Derrick Lewis here? I often do pick against Derrick Lewis, by the way. But Diniz is really good at keeping his chin tucked. But is that going to go straight into an uppercut from Derrick Lewis? That's what I'm wondering. He beat Rodrigo Nascimento. He beat Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. But I could have seen Marcos winning that by chewing up his leg before that. Like, I picked Marcos to win, I'm pretty sure. Because I thought, oh, God, he's got fast hands. He's tucked up. And he's good at grappling. And he's got really good low kicks. And Derrick Lewis is susceptible to everything because he's a heavyweight. And he's fat. God, man. Derrick Lewis is such a tricky one because at what point do we just be like, eventually he will come to an end, you know? He's 39. He's not making improvements in his game ever. But he survives Jailton Almeida like a lot of guys can't. Romanov gets finished early, you know? Like, Lewis is a survivor. But on the feet is where he can be put out. But does Jhonata Diniz really have that level of power to where I'm like, you can't get hit by this guy? No, he doesn't really. He's powerful. He's big. He's not that big for a heavyweight. He ain't got that crazy of a reach. I could see him at light heavyweight at some point in the future. You know, he took Carl Williams to a decision, hurt him, and then got taken down in moments. It's the Carl Williams special. It's just, I don't see enough. I know he had a lot of finishes coming into the UFC, but it's not like you can't get hit by this guy type of stuff. Like, he has to put stuff together against you, which might actually work against Lewis, though, man. It's really difficult to pick a Lewis fight. It always is very difficult. Sheesh. Do I finally do it? I kind of like picking against Lewis and being wrong. I don't want to let that dictate the way I see this fight. God, I want to pick Jhonata Diniz because I actually think he's very technical as a fighter. I do think he's good. But he's had moments where he's been like landed on by lesser opponents than Derrick Lewis, and you can't risk that. But I could so see him landing some good stuff on the feet and then just working Lewis. But he might need too many to get it. And that gives Lewis the chance to just bulldoze back in with his own big shots. I do think Lewis needs a finish. I think if he lets Diniz work into the fight on the feet, he'll get put away. Oh, what a stupid, stupid sport, dude. I bet Derrick Lewis is an underdog as well, just making it all that more tempting. I ain't checked the odds yet. He is the underdog. Of course he is, because it does make sense to pick Diniz because he is pretty good. On the feet, he's very good. But listen, man, Eduardo Neves landing 24 shots on you in the first round before you put him away. Yeah, I'll go Jhonata Diniz. At some point, Derrick Lewis must be gone from the heavyweight division. At some point, surely it happens. Where he finally loses that level of fight, which is this one, by the way. Where it's just like, okay, enough's enough. You know, it's time to end this. They've been giving him that level of opponent, though. You know, they gave him, like, Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, Rodrigo Nascimento. I can just so see Diniz chewing up his leg. And Diniz keeps his chin so tucked. He's not like a heavyweight that swings like that and he's ready to get chinned by a guy like Derrick Lewis. I'm going to bet on the new blood. I'm going to go with Jhonata Diniz getting this one done. I think he'll chop up Derrick Lewis's leg, ride out a bit of an early storm, move well, keep his chin tucked, and chew up the leg and eventually work Derrick Lewis to a TKO finish in the late first or second round. We'll move on. Rose Namajunas versus Erin Blanchfield. Blanchfield is like shit at fighting. Like, she's awful. There was a moment where I was thinking, oh, she's actually kind of good. But then the Manon Fiorot fight was kind of like, yeah, you're trash. Taylor Santos, good fighter, but just got kind of out-held against the cage by Blanchfield. And she did great against other opponents, like the great Molly McCann and the great Jessica Andrade, who actually is quite good. And she looked good on the feet in that fight as well and got the takedown and got the sub. So what the fuck happened after that? Rose Namajunas. It's a tricky one to do. She is good, and I think she will be able to work her way back up here against Blanchfield. I'd have loved if she had 5 rounds to figure this one out. That would have made me like a lot more confident in Rose. But she's an underdog, and I do like that. I think she is going to win anyway, and I'm leaning towards Rose Namajunas. I think she's just a way more technically well-trained fighter compared to Erin Blanchfield. She's got good scrambles, good reactions to wrestling. She doesn't have to worry about any like KO power on the feet here either. She looked good in her last fight against Tracy Cortez. Knocked the fucking fake eyelashes off of her. Yes, we have to say that. Women's MMA is a joke. I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas here. I'll take Rose. Rose to win over Erin Blanchfield. Erin Blanchfield in her last fight against Manon, she didn't shoot takedowns. She just walked into shots. And it was like, what are you doing? Like, you aren't a trained fighter then. You have some grappling and you can overpower some girls who don't know what they're doing. I'm going to go Rose. Well-trained fighter. I don't think she's like Manon Fiorot level, but she took it to Manon Fiorot and she broke her hand in that fight. Am I remembering that correctly? She had a really close fight with Manon, and I think Manon's legit. If you compare the two of their performances against her. Yeah, very close fight with Manon Fiorot. I'm going to go Rose. I'm going to confidently go Rose as an underdog. We move on. Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Now, I wanted to go Amir Albazi, but I'm going to go Brandon Moreno. Royval's no fucking joke, dude. And I'm sick of pretending like he is. Royval is no joke. And to take him to split decision at altitude is something. I thought Royval won the fight very clearly, but it was like 3-2 Royval. Moreno was chewing up his leg, but he just wasn't really doing enough with the boxing, and he couldn't really do enough with the boxing because Royval was just getting the better of him in that regard. But you got 5 rounds, and I don't see Albazi finishing Moreno. Could it be a sad end where we're like, oh, Albazi finished him, Moreno's done, he's completely finished, he'll never be anything? Yes, but the split decision to Pantoja, dude, there's an argument for him there. You know, I think Pantoja could have won it. It was a very close fight. Watching it live, I thought Pantoja won because I think he did a little better with the grappling than people give him credit for. You know, he got the back in certain moments. He was landing elbows of like ground and pound. Even off of his back in moments, he was slicing some elbows as well. But I like that, man. Figueiredo wins, aged very well. The Cara France win has aged very well. I don't think Albazi beat Cara France outright. And then for Albazi, my argument was, Moreno's had some time off. He's getting a bit older now. He's not the assassin baby. He's 30 though, so he's still near his prime. Albazi's 31. He's new to the game. He hasn't had so much wear and tear as Moreno. But then I watched the story of what Amir Albazi was going through during his time off, and I'm like, hang on a second here. I'm picking this guy because he ain't got the wear and tear. And that's the only reason I'm picking him, because I don't think he's better on the feet, and I don't think he's going to be able to hold down Moreno and like dominate him in the grappling enough. So I'm basically saying, Moreno's had too much damage. Albazi will win. And I find out Albazi's nearly paralyzed in his time off. You know, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he broke his hand, but he's been working on his grappling. He's been working on this. He's been working on that. The guy broke his spine and went through multiple surgeries. And he ain't fought since June of 2023. He's been out for nearly a year and a half. Was supposed to fight Moreno in Mexico City, which was actually a completely different style switch-up for Moreno to adjust to them Royval, who came in, who's the cardio machine, pick at you on the feet with high volume compared to Albazi, who picks individual shots and exchanges and tries to grapple and get a dominant position. So he actually got thrown off with a completely different style matchup. But then I hear all these injuries that Albazi's been going through. Broke his spine, neck injury, could have been paralyzed, was a punch away from losing the ability to walk. I don't like that. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. I think this might be a bit too much for Amir Albazi, and I'll say this as well. Dude's been out for a while, and if you look back through his career, this is one of the worst situations to come back to. Sold out crowd, Canada. I know they're very sore, so it won't be too rowdy, but I mean, the guy fought Cara France where? In the Apex? It was the Apex. I'm fairly certain he fought Costa in the Apex as well. Oh no, this one did have a crowd. This was the Kentucky card. Fair enough, but it's not the same. He's not the main event. You know what I mean? I don't like it for him. I don't like it for him. Last fight in the Apex, now he's coming back after years out. Injuries. Straight back into a main event in his career. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno getting this one done. 3-rounder, I might have gone with Albazi doing enough, but I just don't see him causing enough damage. You know, and we're separating things a little sooner against the cage, and we're valuing damage a lot more. Yeah, and Albazi's name don't end in a V, so he's not going to get credit for just holding someone against the cage. I'm going with Brandon Moreno. See you later. Thank you for watching. Brandon Moreno decision win. Close. 3-2 on rounds. See you later. Goodbye.